and sometimes, we're working so hard for the ministry, and then the business struggles. When the business is doing really well, I'm checked out on the ministry. So it's like, constantly trying to find this healthy balance. Truthfully, that's why we do what we do, right? We're in this creative space because we don't like to be told what to do, how to do it, blah blah blah.
Nobody else is as critical as myself of my work. Some people will appreciate that, and most people don't.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give yourself maybe 7, 8 years ago when you're just starting out? Okay, so we both work in ministry.
Mhm.
What that means is we basically feel a calling from the Lord, and then we want to serve His people
Mhm.
in all the capacities we can,
Right.
whether that's creatively or ministering to His people, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then I know that you always, you know, have like a hybrid of both. So like
Mm.
while you're doing ministry, you're doing video stuff for the ministry you're doing it,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started in that, how you got
Yeah.
started in ministry and in doing video photo
Yeah. Yeah. For
things.
sure. So, um, how I got started, yeah, and just my passion for the church and God's people and all of that really started at a young age. I came um, to know Jesus as my Lord and Savior when I was relatively young, through a vacation Bible school, and just been walking with the Lord ever since. And through some of the hardest and roughest years of my life as a teenager, and with a parent that was deceased, and then a step parent that was deceased, and then my own mother passed away, and then so by the time I was 18, both parents gone, most aunts and uncles gone, grandparents gone. Um, yeah, it was just really tough. But having my mom's sister, my aunt, she was really like supportive and took care of me and my other siblings, and really filled that gap and really loved on us, and cared for us well, and always made sure and kind of encouraged us to go to church, and knowing that we were raised and looked after by a tribe of people from my church. Excuse me, my bad. But yeah, so really, and then in the tougher part of my teenage years, just my youth pastor, and just other people from my church just really loving on me and my family, and really just showing the love of God, and serving us well and all that kind of stuff really encouraged me to want to do that for other people. Um, so I remember being in high school, and wanting to do, or like have an occupation, if you will, like a paycheck from ministry, knowing it wouldn't be great, knowing that it wouldn't be good, and all that kind of stuff. But I've always been interested in a ton of things, like, so as far as work, like I would do whatever to, get whatever I needed, legally, of course. I did landscaping for years, or worked at a nursing home washing dishes, like whatever it was. But I got the most joy and fulfillment from serving and being, in ministry, if you will. Um, yeah. So when I graduated high school, I was obviously 18, graduated high school, worked at a Christian summer camp, came home, and then like a few weeks later found out my mom had stage 4 cancer and was about to pass away. And I wanted to go to college that fall, and I was already registered, had already started community college, so I was gonna see that through till December. So my mom passed in September, finished the semester, and then I went and did missions work. So it's kind of how I got started in ministry, and doing evangelical missions, and traveled to New Zealand, Cambodia, all over Europe, doing different stuff, from working in refugee camps to church planting type of stuff or just assisting local leaders that were, long time in their communities serving and just helping with outreach stuff and all that kind of stuff. So that's how I got started. But to rewind a little bit, how I got into photo and video, I was in high school and I love the outdoors. So my friends and I would go like cliff jumping and all that, and we'd watch all these cliff jumpers and YouTubers and stuff. I'm from Pennsylvania, and there's some pretty significant cliffs on the Northeast and all that. So yeah, I just wanted to start. And we started with an iPhone. Like I go back and look at these videos and I just laugh, but I had an iPhone and we were recording this, making all these edits and stuff. But that's how it really started. And kind of, I guess the ability to tell story, to capture a story, to make a story, and display or relay a story through it all. I thought it's really interesting and something I'm continuing to explore now. It's kind of how I got started, got into it, and then that semester in college before I left to do missions, I knew because I was going to be traveling, I wanted a quality camera that could, capture and display and be able to share testimonies and everything that's happening all around me, So I remember purchasing my first camera. It was a Canon Rebel T7i, and I just got the body only used, so I got a really good deal on it. Got the 24 pancake lens, super cheap, and I got the 50 mil and then some other zoom lens, all because it was a budget. And I remember like keeping it a secret from my family because they would have lost it if they knew I spent like $500, $600 on a camera and lenses. They were like, "You're nuts." But it was crazy because that fall there was a snowstorm. Sorry, I'm rambling. I don't even know why I'm telling this story. But that fall there was a snowstorm, and my sister had off of school, and I had the camera, but I didn't bring it out. And I remember recording. I tried to make some cinematic video with my sister playing in the snow, like sledding. I'll send that to you. It's hilarious. And I remember just like showing my family the edit, and they were like, my aunt was like, "You should shoot weddings." And I was like, she was like, "Seriously, people would pay for that. Like, you should really consider shooting weddings." And, I was just like, whatever. And I didn't really make anything of it. And I oftentimes, I don't know why I forget that, but until I see that video, I remember that after her reaction of "you should shoot weddings." So I did, and well, not yet. So it was like a year later, somebody had hit me up to shoot their wedding. I had a T7i, some, just like very, very basic equipment, no mics or anything. And I made my first wedding video, and I got paid like, it was in Canadian. So it was like, I want to say it was close to 600 Canadian. So whatever that is in US dollars. Mm-hmm. But like the camera literally paid for itself after a year. I was like, wow. And I look back at that video. Oftentimes as creatives, I think we look down on our work like, "Oh, I could have done this better. Oh, this is horrible. This edit, this color grade, this, but I look back at the video and I'm like, dang, bro, like I really shot that with one camera, no gimbal, no tripod, no nothing, and really made something of it. And it was so, so beautiful. So all that to say, that's how I kind of got started in photo and video, and then shooting my first wedding. And then, so I would go and do missions for like 6 months, come back to the States and work, and then go back out into the mission field, because doing missions, like, you raise support. So I'd come back, raise support, work, to be able to support the next few months out on mission. So that's what I did. And then, did that for a spurt of years. And then COVID came around, and then I was like, okay, I want to take this business serious. Like I'd done little photo shoots here and there, of like family shoots or headshots, portraits and whatever. But it was a time where I was like, okay, like I want to do this full time. I couldn't travel, couldn't do missions because the world was shut down because of COVID. But I wanted to, can we say that word anymore? Or does stuff get, like does stuff get, how like they beat the algorithm if you talk about COVID because you're not a medical professional. But anyway, sorry. So all that, the world was shut down, was going back to college, and I had met somebody who I was working at this camp, and she was like, "Hey, you should reach out to my friend. She does wedding photos, and maybe she can get you some connections." So I did. It's like, "Hey, You know, I met so and so, and you know, I'd love to get connected. If you have any brides that are willing to do a free, yeah, are willing to let me do a free wedding video for them, you know, that would be great. I'll take 3. You know, I know some people say, well, just do one. It's like, no, I need a strong portfolio. I'll do 3 free weddings. None of them actually were free. They all ended up paying me at least like $150. But the amount of leads that I got through that photographer and the amount of leads I got through those weddings really is what put me on the map. And that was in the middle of COVID, like when wedding venues had restrictions. Like I had 15 inquiries. I had like 10 solid bookings, but because of restrictions, they had to cancel their wedding date, and I had to, you know, whatever. So, but I shot a handful of weddings that fall, and things just really, really went well. So much I learned, you know, really trying to do the business full time. And then 2020 Christmas came. I came out to Hawaii to visit my sister, and we did a day of outreach, and I was like, I missed this, you know. I missed outreach. I missed serving and all of that stuff. So I packed my bags, moved to Hawaii for 3 months to be part of this discipleship program. And then from there, I got a full-time job as essentially a youth pastor at a church in Central Florida. So, yeah, that was kind of the gateway, the floodgates open to ministry and, you know, the you know, being a creative on the side. Yeah, so even, you know, working in ministry full time, you know, I'm blessed to earn what I earn, but, you know, it can be tight, you know, which is why a lot of people are, what do you call that? What's the word? What's the formal word for it?
I really, so I love, you know, hearing stories like this because I can just see, you know, how God's fingerprint is all over your story, right? And then to me, I think what connected us so quickly is because there's a lot of similarities between your journey and my journey. Um, Not to say that I mean I left home when I was 17, right? And then I came here to America, so I was basically away from my family, all my relatives, and but I've never picked up a camera till I was like 18 or 19 and start shooting. Like,
Yeah.
and then it was really just for I remember in the beginning I had my iPhone too, and I was shooting and kind of editing the photos
Yeah.
on my phone. And then something I want to point out is you said the ability to document stories, to being able to tell something through your images or videos. That's what got me into photography in the beginning too. And I just thought it was magical, right? You know, you can manipulate it too if you want to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and when I start following Jesus, and then my gift in photography was used right away. Because when I started to, I think my first camera was a Canon T3i. I bought off of Facebook
Yeah.
marketplace, and I had a kit lens on it.
Yeah.
But once I got the camera, I started to take photography classes in my college. But I had my camera with me. I was involved in a ministry called Bridges. It's for international students. So I had my camera. I just brought it to every event
Yeah.
I was at, and I was just snapping photos. And then I just handed my photos to the staffs and then some of my friends, and then they saw it like, oh shoot, you can take photos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I started from there on, and then took photos elsewhere. But like you said, I never would have dreamt to use a tiny camera to, you know, make money at some point, you know, down in my life.
Yeah.
So that's pretty incredible, and I feel like there's so many angles we can go in about talking about these two things.
For sure.
because recently, from that podcast we watched from Omar,
Mm,
the guy with glasses, he
mm,
was talking about him feeling like being torn to choose either ministry or
mm.
doing creative work.
Yeah.
But at some point, he realized maybe it's not a pick and choose,
Mm,
you know?
mm.
Maybe it's both,
Yeah.
right? What do you think? What do you think he's saying here?
Yeah. When is this podcast gonna drop? Because can I no, well, you know the current situation. So
Hmm.
I don't know, man. In seasons I go through um in seasons I'm like, I want to just pick one. Um, I'm relatively newly married. We've been married a year and a half, my wife and I.
Same.
And sometimes, we're working so hard for the ministry and that, whereas then the business struggles. And then, when the business is doing really well, I'm checked out on the ministry. So it's like, constantly trying to find this healthy balance. And then you add in being married, and then you add in family, and then it's just so many factors. And so it's hard. Sometimes I go through seasons of like, okay, I need to choose. And not that choosing the creative route by any means would be like I'm like wrong. You know what I mean? I think the older I get, the more people I talk to, the more normal I see it is that people, pursue pursue God, pursue reaching the lost, pursue loving their neighbor, their coworker in the workplace. You know,
Mhm.
and I think that's the place right now. That's where I think I'm headed, wanting to make that jump, um, and that being the mission field, if you will, and also just being able to use my gifts and talents and time and all of that for the glory of God, and in the sense of maybe and just brainstorming like what could that look like as far as making media that presents the gospel. But all that to say, yeah, that's kind of yeah, it's been a struggle, and I really struggle with it now, as you know. um, yeah, it's tough. Um, sorry, I'm trying to think. There's a lot I want to say, but I also want to, not just speak out of because of all of the pressure and because of all of the stress it brings me trying to find that balance. I don't like speaking out of just my emotions and what I feel. Like my emotions are great indicators, right? But I don't want them to dictate my, you know what I mean, my action. But yeah, so yeah, it's a tough uh,
Mhm.
juggle, Yeah.
Ministry would need your 100% attention spiritually and physically
Mm,
because you need to take care of people
yeah.
on both
Mm,
sides, and then on business side too. Like it you need to go and shoot, so physically and then mentally as well, because you have to talk to clients, you have
yeah.
to think about strategies
Right.
and all of these things. So I think what Omar was talking about in his podcast was that the reason why he started to doing both
Mm,
is because he got to a point where you know the business that he was running doesn't require him too much of
mm,
attention.
yeah.
Like, we do business now because, we're trying to get into it because one, we need to require money, right?
Yeah.
We
Right.
need to, establish some sort of system, the financial security, right?
Yeah.
But he got to a point where uh, he had a system, and
Mm,
then now his attention can be fully spent on something else, which
yeah.
is ministry, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Not to say that he didn't do any ministry while his business was growing,
Yeah.
but um, kind of like you said, in seasons where he puts one above the other, kind of the priority list,
Yeah.
then because he's aiming for the long run,
Yeah.
right? He's not
Yeah.
only thinking about, okay, right now I'm just gonna
Yeah.
do this, but eventually he probably thought he was gonna build a business that's able to sustain
Mhm.
himself, his family,
Yeah.
and then the business itself, so he can have more time
Yeah.
to spend in ministry,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
I think that's the dream,
yeah. And I
right?
think that's when I see people like him, um, when I see people like Parker, Walbeck,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, okay, they've gotten I I have to I oftentimes lose sight, or I forget that I'm really truthfully in the season, in the beginning, right? In the season of building these systems, that these are going to take a lot of time, energy, money to build now. But once the system
Mm-hmm.
is already up and running, like the better I can set up that system now, I'm hoping, right, the less maintenance I'll have to do on the back end. So more of my time is free and all that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, things conversations that I have with my wife, conversations that I have with other people that are wanting my time, wanting my energy now. Because if you know me, like I'm a people person, and I have a fear of missing out. Like I always want to be with people, whether we're playing basketball, pickleball,
Mm-hmm.
going surfing, whatever. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to give like 100% of my energy to whoever's around me, right? But then, when I go in seasons of, okay, my head's down and I'm working my hands to the plow, trying to get these things up off the ground. And, at times, my wife's like she feels neglected, or my family feels
Mm-hmm.
neglected, or, and
Mm-hmm.
all that to say, I am, and, when I see people like Omar, when I see people like Parker, it gives me hope to know that, like, okay, beyond putting all this work in, there is going to be a season of, the system set up. I don't have to sit here and email back and forth and, fix this error and do this and do
Mm-hmm.
that and whatever, that there will be a time of just like, doing both, and having the time to
Mm-hmm.
choose the freedom. And that's, I think, truthfully, that's why we do what we do, right? We
Mm-hmm.
we're in this creative space because we don't like to be told what to do, how to do it, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to, do all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's interesting because again, the similarities between your journey and my journey. I am at the season right now. Like you said, I'm newly
Mhm.
married as well,
Mhm.
and I want to set up the system because I just realized the traditional way of working, um, 8 to 9, or a traditional job that is
Yeah.
not really gonna be able to. I'm not gonna be able to provide for my family doing
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Granted, I think there's a lot of people who are doing that,
Mhm.
still, but my brain is not wired to
On
do that,
island, bro, that's
right?
gonna be hard. Yeah.
Right. So so I have to think of other ways. And now I've seen examples of people who are able to, get to a place where they're at peace, where they're with
Mhm.
their business and finances, so they can just freely do whatever. So that's really really the goal.
Mhm.
I'm trying to learn as much business stuff I can
Mhm.
to really get the system start going
Yeah.
for me, because for all the years I've done creative works, for ministries, for businesses, I really didn't have a business mindset,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I was always looking at the business with a creative mindset.
Mhm.
I'm always thinking about the stuff that I'm doing, the photos I'm taking, the
Mhm.
videos I'm taking. How can I take better photos, take better videos? But at the end of the day, nobody else is
Mhm.
as critical as myself
Mhm.
of my work,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then some people will appreciate that,
Mhm.
and most people don't,
Yeah. Right.
right? And
Mhm.
then that's what the biggest difference between business people and creative people. Business people is focused on the outcome and the result
Mhm.
that they can provide, the solution they can provide. But sometimes we're just so hung up on the creative side of the work.
Yeah,
How can I improve the photos
for sure.
and
Yeah.
blah blah blah? What can be involved in the production?
Yeah.
So yeah, all that being said, um, learning business, learning marketing, and trying to position myself in this market uh, where I can, really set up the system. And
Mm,
that's why, it's so funny that you came in this season of my life.
mm,
And I'm like, okay, how do I use this connection? How do I use this
yeah,
friendship, balance
for
this?
sure.
So like, when the client's vision with your spiritual belief doesn't line up,
Yeah,
how do
yeah,
you how do
yeah,
you handle that?
yeah. Yeah. Um, Gosh. So thankfully that hasn't been too much of an issue for me. Um,
Mhm,
I think on the front end, kind of people knowing who I am, what I do and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, like I want to serve the person so well that they get the product that they want, right?
mhm,
So if that's me telling you, hey, go to this person because they're gonna give you a better product, that's yeah, sure, I'm turning down a gig, if you will, but I'm saving myself the headache, the stress, the time, energy, on something that I'm really not that passionate about, that I'm really not have no drive, and there's really no need for me to get myself into some quarrel like that, and at the end, like I'm sure they'll be 100% satisfied with the person that I do pass them on to. And that's a good look, on them. Oh, he recommended me, blah, blah, blah. And then that photographer or videographer could come and say, thanks for the recommendation, whatever. So, but yeah, there was, so weddings is a bit different than like commercial or other kind of um, like video photo products, if you will. I have had some clients that are like super specific, wanting super specific shots, which aren't a problem, and
mhm,
I'm able to get. Um, there are some things, obviously, like I'm I'm a believer, right? And some things I'm like, I don't know if you're gonna like this in your wedding video, or
mhm,
when and obviously like weddings, people get drunk all the time, so just trying to be mindful, and I try not to capture certain stuff. Again, like I'm here to display two couples uniting and all that kind of stuff. I know other people want folks acting up in their video and photos and all that kind of stuff, but
mhm,
I know my niche client. Like I know my client isn't really, they're not on that. Simply that they don't really care about that stuff. So,
mhm,
that's who I tried to narrow down to. But all that to say, there was one client who I probably had to do five or yeah, I think hers was five, and the other one I had another wedding that fall that wanted like four revisions um,
mhm,
of their wedding video, and so they were like, hey, you cut this and this, and I wanted more of this and this. So okay, I didn't think it fit, but here I am. I spent it was like a 10-minute video,
mhm,
so like anyway, so I add all the stuff in, and they're like, oh, I see what you're talking about. Can you take this out and this out and this out and this out? Take it all out. And then it's like, oh, can you add this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And again, this was one of those like free weddings, or one of those
mhm,
$150 weddings.
mhm,
Now,
mhm, mhm.
I know some people would say, you should have said whatever, whatever. And going back, I probably could have learned how to say that. But all that to say, yeah, there's been times where I feel convicted as I'm editing. I shouldn't do this, so, or I
Mhm,
shouldn't, I don't know, so I'll leave it out of the edit, and then clients want all that in, so I add it, and at the end of the day, it's their product that they're paying for, and just truly trying to make the customer happy. But most times, I know how to make them happy, and I give them what they want.
What kind of advice would you give yourself
Mhm.
maybe 7, 8 years ago when you're just starting out, wanting to do business and also wanting to do ministry at the
Yeah,
same time?
for sure. On the business side, for sure. Um, Put yourself out there. Like, yes, you're beginning work. You're going to feel like it sucks. You're going to think that it's not good and everybody can take, um, you know, so much, better photos and videos and whatever. But there's always be a client for the level that you are at. Always. And it's just a matter of them finding you and you finding them. It's just a matter of that connection. Um, so so don't give up. Post all of your work. Blast the socials. That's something. I'm saying this because I don't do this. I'm saying this because
Mm-hmm.
and I can't help but to think, where would my business be today if I would have been more diligent with marketing it, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
part of that why I didn't market it was because I was working full time in ministry. So if I did market it and I was getting all these bookings, then I simply wouldn't be able to do both. We work for
Mm-hmm.
a church. I work on Sundays and probably once a month on a Saturday if there's events, just the
Mm-hmm.
nature of churches, right? So
Mm-hmm.
weddings are typically Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. And so that means that the pool of people that I'm pulling from is already limited, right? And then we have
Mm-hmm.
pop-up events at churches. So it's like I have something booked out a year. This happened to me a year in advance. I got, I transferred jobs or I got it, as the youth pastor, and I didn't have vacation time, paid time off, and all that kind of stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
thankfully I was graced with the opportunity to fly out, shoot the wedding, come back before church in the morning. It was nuts. But all that to say, market yourself. Put yourself out there because something will come from that is what I would
Mm-hmm.
say. And many mentors or connections in the game told me that. I I didn't listen, and I regret. That's probably one of my biggest regrets, not doing. And just being more reserved or not confident in my work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just be confident in what you do and not prideful, but
Mm-hmm.
confident and putting it out there and all that kind of stuff, that you do have a service to provide. So that's one thing for sure on the business side. And yeah, on the ministry side, there's a lot, man. Because each season God teaches us different things and
Yeah.
and everything like that. So um, I think truly, I think the biggest thing that I'm learning now, and not just now, this has been for years, is to, you know, um, although we don't know the outcome of our decisions, if you feel God is stirring you or moving you or you're being convicted about certain things, don't let that go unresponded. And I'm not talking about some deep, carnal sin. It's
Mm-hmm.
not what I'm talking about by any means. Like if you know me, you know the things that I wrestle with, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
that. But it can lead to um, just being how can I say, like, calloused or
Mm-hmm.
you know I don't know, after kind of ignoring a nudge or a pull or push a certain way. I think we can begin to be calloused and just ignore those things, and I think I'm at a place where the things that I'm wrestling with can't be ignored anymore. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
husband, I'm a leader of a family, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think about, if God graces us with children, like, I need to be able to stand firm on what I believe and how I can
Mm-hmm.
teach that and lead my family in love in those biblical, truths. So all that to
Mm-hmm.
say, not don't, if you're feeling something, if you're sensing something, and not by any means like seeker sensitive or like hyper spiritual, but I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
truthfully, if you're intellectually wrestling with these things and all that stuff, it's not going to stop, because it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't for me, and it's been you know
Mm-hmm.
years. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely, don't ignore those things. God will provide whatever. It says, the word says clearly, seek first the kingdom of God,
Mm-hmm.
and then these things will be added unto you. Like, there's nothing, scripture is full of not to worry and how he provides, and he is our provider. We're made in his image, and if we're seeking him, if we're honoring him with our lives, and if we're pursuing him, if we're, truly repenting from our day-to-day sins and turning and trying to be more like him, um, you know, I, he'll make a way, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's
Mm-hmm.
something I would have said to myself years ago, and that's something I say to myself to remind myself now in the current season that I'm in. Like, he's got
Mm-hmm.
us,
Mm-hmm.
and all I can do is give him what's in my hands, and
Mm-hmm.
give him what's in my
Mm-hmm.
heart, and just you know trust. Really, a brother said that
Mm-hmm.
to me the other day. He was like, whatever you do, you got to trust God.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's
Mm-hmm.
you do business full time or that's you in ministry full time. Either way, you're relying
Mm-hmm.
completely on Him. So
Absolutely.
it doesn't change. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen. Let's end with this. Where can people find you if your social
Yeah.
website, if
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
wanted a wedding or
For sure. Yeah. So you can find me. My best place would for weddings is my Instagram, Morefield Moments. Um, and you can see my weddings on there. My website isn't live. I'm in the process of transferring, so right now my
Mhm.
website's not live, but in a month or so it should be up and running and things like that. But shoot
Mhm.
me a DM on Instagram, and I have other Instagram pages for like portraits or real estate photos and
Mhm.
videos, so you can check that. They'll all be linked on that initial Instagram, and you can find me there.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yep. So if you are here in Hawaii, you wanted a wedding or you wanted some photos, who to hit up.
And if it's from watching this podcast, leave that and you'll get a 25% discount.
Oh wow.
25% off
Wow.
of your wedding day. I'm
All
giving
right, you
freebies
heard it.
because there's freebies dropped in this in the podcast. So
You hear that. You hear that. All right. Hey Josh,
yeah,
appreciate you. Thank you
yeah,
very much. And we'll chat again.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Looking forward to it, man. Thank